Are there any mistakes that you see that leaders make when crafting a story or delivering a story?
Yeah, well, lots of them. So some of the more common and interesting ones are happen right up front, though, right when they're about to tell a story. A couple of them are uh, never apologize or ask permission to tell a story at work. I mean, you've seen that happen all the time, right? You'll be in a meeting and somebody raise their hand and say, "Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, but can I just tell a quick story? I promise it'll just take a minute." Right
Mm.
now, what does that communicate, do you think, to the rest of the people in the audience about how important they think the story is?
Oh, yeah, it undermines it completely.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Clearly, they don't think it was as important as what was going to be said anyway, right? Because
Mhm.
they're apologizing and asking permission to tell it. Right. So,
Mhm.
and if you do think, or if you don't think that your story is as important as what was going to be said, like by all means, like don't tell it. Right. But if you do think your story is important, just tell it. No apology, no asking permission. Right. Leaders don't ask permission to lead. They just lead. Never ask permission to tell a leadership or a sales or business or marketing story. Like you're just doing your job. Just tell it. The other one that I see all the time is uh, don't tell people that you're going to tell them a story. Just tell them the story, right? So, I mean, there are a lot of people who have a negative visceral reaction to hearing the words, let me tell you a story. Because they think that you're going to tell them some long, boring, 15-minute irrelevant story, or you're going to lie to them because some people telling stories means lying. If you grew up where I grew up, so there are a lot of connotations to using the word story that just doesn't sit well with a lot of people at work. Now, the analogy I use though is because they like the story. If you tell them a great story, they'll appreciate it, but they won't if you tell them you're going to tell them a story. So the best analogy I've thought of is it's kind of like a business person at work telling them you're going to tell them a story is kind of like telling a 5-year-old kid it's time to stop playing outside and come inside and take a bath. Like in both cases, they don't want to, but once they're in it, they love it and don't want to get out. Right? Once the
Mhm.
kid's in the bath, he's having fun and playing. He doesn't want to get out. And same with a story for a grown up. Once they're in the story, they're enjoying it and they're listening to it and they're learning and they're engaged. They don't want to get out. But if you tell them ahead of time that's what's going to happen, they're usually not interested. So don't spoil it by telling them it's time to come in and take a bath.